anglerfish. We have all heard of this species since childhood. Personally, I have admired the hideous perfection of anglerfish since I was little. Its white, blind eyes always stare lifelessly at the boundless darkness of the ocean. Its gigantic mouth easily swallows prey over half of its body size and stores it in its massive belly as a source of nutrients for an entire week. Its elegant glowing light in front of the devilish fish, along with other luminescent feelers, set up a deadly trap that allures the pathetic prey towards the silent and unseen death. This frightening predator dwelling in the deep ocean undoubtedly exhibits a grotesque yet intriguing lifestyle. As a child, the mere image of an anglerfish already brought me endless nightmares, and this impression intensified as I learned more about this creature. Out of all the oddness of anglerfish, the most repulsive one is unquestionably its reproduction method. The impression of a giant head, blind-eyed predators are what most people had towards anglerfish. It is not what all anglerfish look like. In fact, only female anglerfish show these characteristics. On the other hand, males are these tiny fish that look like white, translucent, and harmless tadpoles that do not even look like they belong to the same race as their female mates. In fact, some males only measure 6 to 7 millimeters, whereas female can measure up to 3.3 feet. This might sound shocking to many humans because our society is mainly male-dominated, where a stereotypical female is usually weaker than the males. However, in most organisms, female tends to be the more dominant gender in their group. Think about it. Females have an honorable duty of reproducing offspring, which require a lot of energy. Therefore, female needs to become more predatory and vicious to receive this needed energy. On the other hand, males are merely supplying a sperm. In fact, in many organisms, males are disposable, meaning they immediately die after they mate and provide sperms to the females. The relationship between two mates usually ends as soon as their intercourse is over. However, for anglerfish, the relationship between two genders is permanent, but not romantic, which one would usually think of when coming across a permanent mate. When two anglerfish mates, the male bites onto the female's belly with their mouth. Then, their mouth releases an acidic substance that partially melts down the female's skin as well as its mouth. Once the tissues regenerate, the mouth and the female skin permanently fuse together, connecting their circulatory system. In this way, the male can absorb nutrients from the female's blood like human babies do when they are in their mother's belly, which turns them into little and annoying parasites on the female's body. Since their tissues are fused together, the male is stuck with the female forever. Thankfully, to the male's small body size, the female doesn't need to hunt more food to feed her mate. The process does not end here. Since the male lives a parasitic life right now, it no longer needs its brain, eyes, stomach, fins, and most other organs that are considered necessary for a life to live on its own. Hence, all these organs atrophy and degenerate, eventually making the males only a tiny patch of meat dangling on the gigantic body of their mates. Until the early 1920s, this property caused scientists to misinterpret the males as parasites on the anglerfish and troubled the researchers as they struggled to find the male anglerfish. The only two organs remaining are the gills for breathing and the testes to provide sperms when the female requires them, which means the males became nothing but a pair of breathing testicles. In other words, this mating process is, in fact, the female requiring reproductive organs as their everlasting suppliance of sperm. Here's something more astonishing. One female can have more than one male, so they can have multiple sources of sperm to choose from. Why would the males sacrifice all their dignity as life just to store sperm for the females? Well, the males practically cannot feed by themselves under the deep ocean, where planktons and other foods are scarcely found. The challenge of hunting increases tremendously. Surviving alone became very difficult for the teeny tiny male anglerfish with no predatory advantage. Furthermore, it is hard to find a mating partner in a deep and dark ocean where anglerfish live. So instead of mating as many females as possible, like most other animals do, maybe it is better to invest everything in one female. Of course, anglerfish are a big family, and some anglerfish do not permanently mate. For this kind of anglerfish, the male only attaches to the female temporarily, and once the females receive the sperm, they detach themselves and continue their life alone. However, they would not likely to find another mate very easily in the empty and dreadful ocean. Considering all these factors, merging with a strong partner and supplying sperm whenever the female needs, it doesn't sound bad. Anglerfish is grotesque and abnormal mating stems from the harsh environment they live in. Under this environment, the difference between gender roles became so huge that the males and females seem to belong to two different species. Nevertheless, this horrifying ritual is still the result of the Earth's most efficient and the most brutal method of filtration: natural selection. Under this intensive environment in the deep ocean, anglerfish must find a way to ensure the proliferation of their species, even if it means sacrificing the freedom of some members of the population. Indeed, the males practically lost all their dignity and independence. But all these sacrifices are for fulfilling the only two goals of life: survival and reproduction.